I want you to take a good look at Will and myself right now. I mean, we probably kind of look a little tired. We're going to look a lot more tired next week because the madness is about to begin. Free agency frenzy. They're already tampering. The legal tampering doesn't show up till whatever, the 10th.
Been tampering since last summer.
Yeah, I mean, I know people like they're sticklers to the rules. The rules don't matter here. He is Will Parkinson. I'm Mike Giardi. This is another edition of the All 32 Pod. We are taping Friday, March 7th. It is 10 a.m. and we are closing in, as I mentioned, on a crazy time. Even though this free agency class, not that awesome. Will and I are going to get into the perfect free agency period for the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. Going to make a very bold prediction of what is going to happen here during the next, 5 to 10 days. And also take a look at some of the news from around the league, as there has been a lot going on. A reminder, this show brought to you by PrizePicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Will, I'm going to let you lead us off. The New York Jets' perfect free agency is shoot.
Perfect free agency. I'm going to list about six or seven names here. I think would be, and I'm being incredibly realistic. I'm trying to be this is all, I would say, more than relatively informed on guys they like to target, kind of the market they'll be shopping in. I think at quarterback, the ideal scenarios are able to lock up Justin Fields either on a 1 or 2 year deal, 1 year really guaranteed, very similar to the Darnold deal from last year. That would leave them Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields, going into the draft where it's not a priority to overdraft or trade up 3 first-round picks for a guy you don't love, or maybe you take a guy in round 2 you don't want to have to play right away. So as much as Justin Fields is not a star, there is some thinking around the Jets and thinking around the NFL that, hey, Sam, Baker, GENO, we've seen guys, at least bad organization, flash, but whatever. They go to a good organization, they either sit or they play a little bit, and then they get their shot. And if it's like, hey, good roster around you, good coaching staff, we mitigate the risk. We take some of the thinking out. Could you be a relatively effective player, at least in the run game and some deep shots? Garrett Wilson having chemistry. So Justin Fields is, I don't say it's priority one. They're not going to go out there and give him $60 million, but he's priority one in terms of he starts there's a million pass that work off of Justin Fields. So I'll say perfect free agency to get Justin Fields day one. I think likely a couple of the Lions and Broncos guys that they're familiar with. I think Melon Fonwu, Derek Barnes went back to the Lions this morning, so he was a name I had mentioned. I think a guy like Carlton Davis potentially. Does he a 1 year deal? We'll see. I'm not sure. That's a dream world. He doesn't cost you much, so I don't want to put him in. He's one of those type of guys. Tim Patrick's might as well be wearing a Jets jersey already. Was in Denver obviously, and then with the Lions, he makes a lot of sense. I think a guy like Matt Parrott, who's a swing tackle for Denver. These are realistic names. They're not exciting, but these are the middle tier of the roster, right? That could fill in swing tackle and safety too, and whatever. I think other than that, outside the building free agents, Josh Palmer. I think Josh Palmer, Tim Patrick, Garrett Corley, and a rookie is probably the most realistic. Maybe a Darius Slayton as well. Maybe 2 of those 3 guys, Patrick, Slayton, and Palmer, 2 of those 3. I think bringing back Morgan Moses and Tyler Conklin would provide you, again, names I think they'd like to bring back. Depends on the market. Obviously, we'll see. Both guys have interest in coming back. If they were able to do that, then you can draft a rookie behind them that could eventually start over them, and then you have a good depth piece as a number 2. Again, if you notice, a lot of this is the Jets' issues last year outside of quarterback were not a lot of depth, and they didn't have a good, plan of, hey, we don't have a backup for this guy when he goes out, right? Morgan Moses goes down week 3 against the Patriots. Carter Warren, that's not going to get it done. Max Mitchell, right? So those names, I think, other than that, a DJ Jones, potentially defensive tackle, was with Denver, signed a big deal, a couple of years ago, $10 million a year. He's a free agent. Again, knows Muji. The Jets probably need to sign 1 to 2 defensive tackles. Outside of that, it's bringing back Jamie Sherwood. It's extending Sauce Gardner. It's extending Garrett Wilson. It's likely extending Quincy Williams. It may be extending Elijah Vera Tucker. Like, they have a lot of in-house things that are almost to be honest, Mike, they're far more important than what they do in free agency. The only other things I'll mention, we mentioned safety with Melon Fonwu. I think, is it Trayvon Mooring? Is it a Justin Reed? Is it a Justin Simmons? Is it who of those? Is that middle tier safety class or that upper tier safety class? The Jets probably need to get at least one, if not two. So to me, again, it's a boring answer. It's a boring 3-minute monologue there, but it's guys that know the culture, guys that can be depth pieces, and the top of the roster is good. It's when Jermaine Johnson goes down, Michael Clemens is playing 75 effing snaps a game in them games on his own, right? It's DJ Reed goes down. Okay, what's behind you? Or it's, that's maybe a bad example, but Devontae Adams wasn't there. It's Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard. Well, Allen Lazard's going to get cut. So who's behind him? Nobody right now. They have nobody with over like 300 career receiving yards behind Garrett Wilson. They need to add at least a couple bodies. Again, you'd feel decent about if I'm the Jets next year, and let's say they drafted Tyler Warren and they bring in the names I mentioned. If your options as a pass catching group are Garrett Wilson, Tyler Warren, Breece Hall, and then you get to Tyler Conklin, Josh Palmer, Darius Slayton, like that's a deep, solid group. Like the NFL is built around having an alpha and then around them guys that fit your basketball roster and ability to have all different positions catch the football. So again, pretty boring, but those are just names I would say are achievable and that they'll have interest in. Other than that, again, quarterback, if they don't get Fields, it's the one name we haven't talked about, and I'll let you go to the Patriots here, is Kirk Cousins. If Kirk does get cut, he is a really good play action passer. He'll cost $1 million. Does he have more in the tank? And it was just the first year off the Achilles. He got hurt late in the year. People forget that part. For $1 million, does him and Tyrod at least go, hey, like if Kirk did look good at points last year. He the last 5 games was, I mean, Mike, me and you could have played quarterback at that level. But before that, it was like, oh, okay, Kirk looks better than Rodgers. And then it flipped. So again, just another name. I've heard some people whisper a little bit of like, hey, what about Kirk? If I'm Atlanta, I wouldn't touch him and let him sit there until somebody's quarterback gets hurt in OTAs and they give us a 4th-round pick for a guy we don't want on our roster. For right now, those are some names to mention for the Jets.
I like the list. I think I like how you approach it because it's sort of similar to the way I looked at the Patriots when I was doing this exercise. And although the Patriots have significantly more money, so there'll be a few more bigger names on that list, it makes a lot of sense. A name that keeps kind of coming up in conversations I've had with people, and this is just in general around the league, and I wonder if the Jets would have appetite, is GENO Smith, who, of course, began his career with the Jets.
You think he gets cut?
I think they would
trade him.
Think they'd be open to trading him. And again, I don't know caps. Like, look, we talk about you can do whatever you want with the caps. So if the Jets really wanted GENO Smith and still wanted to do a bunch of the things you talked about, they could figure it out. I don't know what what would the ask be? Because we're in such a desperate quarterback market. There are far more teams that need a quarterback than there are quarterbacks out there. Of course, in saying that, Seattle would then become that team too, because what are you going to turn it over to Sam Howell, who did not look good in his
you wonder if it would involve like a pick swap.
Perhaps. Right. And that would be interesting? He's still a good look. You want to argue whether he's top 10 or not, but he's a top 15 quarterback. No question in my mind. He's come a long way from his time in New York. I think we can all agree on that. He seems to be a beloved teammate. So I wonder, if you're the Jets and you're thinking he buys us a couple years at the very least of like stopgap. He's not going to cost $55 million a year. If you want to extend him, it's going to be 40-ish, 35, whatever that number is. Like, I don't know. That would be something I would be intrigued by because I think as you and I have talked about, despite the way last year went, with a better coaching situation and some stability at quarterback, if they can get the defense back on track, which they should, because as you said at the beginning of this thing, there are a lot of good players still in place. Like, I think you become a playoff team if GENO Smith's the quarterback. So that's just sort of how I view your situation, where they're coming from. All right. So for the Patriots, I'm going to preface it by saying
You're
I
already being
believe that.
advocated as we speak, by the way, on Chris Godwin. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, great. I'm going to preface this by saying, and I don't know that they can do this in one off season. I've said it before here multiple times. I think they need to turn over half their roster. And I don't know how feasible that is to do in one off
I
season.
would say more.
Right. I'm being kind. I think I remember telling people when I did the final 53-man roster projection for Boston Sports Journal last year, I got to like 40 and I was like, okay. And then I'm like, just like, yeah, I guess you need depth at defensive tackle. You keep this guy and that guy. You need depth at corner. You keep this guy and that guy. But it was like in years past, when they were good, even when, whatever, Bill screwed up the draft and all those sorts of things, there was always 4 or 5 guys you looked at and go, that's a tough cut. Like he's going to play for somebody else.
Yep.
Last year, I didn't feel that way. And then you saw how they reacted. They had to claim guys off waivers. Demontre Jacobs, they claim him off waivers at the end of August. He starts 13 games at right tackle. Like that's the position your roster's in. So I've been advocating for a while that the Patriots should take the 2000-2001 offseason approach with Belichick and Scott Pioli, where they threw mid-level to lower end money at a bunch of NFL veterans in free agency. I think they signed 17 or 18 guys. Again, that's the Mike Vrabel class, Mike Compton, David Patton. Who else am I forgetting? Roman. There was a lot of players that they threw money at, and most of them carved out roles, and some carved out, like Vrabel, massive roles and became cornerstone pieces. I don't know that you can do that now with free agency the way it works, and the lack of, again, there's just the list is very uninspiring, but that'd be sort of the way I'm thinking. But because they have the money, as I mentioned, there'll be some swings. I think Chris Godwin, and I just tweeted this again. We were taping this on Friday morning. Talked to a couple of league sources. They're like, they're going to be the driver on that bus, and that means that a lot of people thought he was going to get around 25 million because, again, it's not an overwhelming class, and they think the Patriots could drive that thing up to 28, 29 million. So is Chris Godwin that kind of player? No, but you have that money. There you go. So Chris Godwin, to me, that would be, he's a great culture fit. Immediately gives Jalen Pope, Javon Baker, Pop Douglas someone to look at and say, oh, that's how it's done. That's how I need to behave. That's how I need to be a pro. And that's how I can further my career. So he's the first one. I think based on the Christian Barmore, and again, he's working out, as I reported before everybody else, like he's working out, but working out is not playing football. And the way the Patriots talked about him at the combine, they weren't like, oh, yeah, like we're excited. Like they're still in that same place where it's like, we don't know. Blood clots twice. Like we don't know. So to me, you have to do something on the defensive line. Milton Williams is probably the most popular player in free agency in terms of what teams are looking for. Yeah. He gives them, they want to be an attacking team, a one-gap team, which is not how they've played for eons under Belichick or even, last year under Giardi. He's that guy. Now, is he a 90% snaps guy? He never had to be in Philly. He was under 50%, but this is free agency. This is what happens. He not only gives you someone who can disrupt next to Barmore, but if Barmore's not there, he'll have to take on a bigger role, but at least you're feeling like we have a much better player than anything we tried to do last year to fill that gap. So Milton Williams, and that to me is a day one, like just go in there. Here's the check. Go for it. I know a lot of people are talking about Ronnie Stanley. And look, they can offer Ronnie Stanley more money. I don't get the sense in talking to people, and whatever, it's still, when they start throwing money around, when he starts getting an idea that maybe the Patriots are willing to pay him $30 million a year for a couple of years guaranteed, like maybe that changes things. But the sense I get on Ronnie Stanley is he wants to, remain in Baltimore, and Kansas City appears to be positioning themselves, even though they're still quote unquote over the cap, to make a run at him as well to try to fix their tackle situation. Again, it'll be less money than the Patriots could offer, but the sense is I get that he wants to win. He's at the end of his career. He's 31 years old or about to be. So scratch that off. Cam Robinson then becomes the guy, and it's not an awesome. He was a high pick for Jacksonville.
Tyron Smith's corpse.
Yeah. So again, it's not awesome, but they understand they can't go into this upcoming season with the offensive line situation the way it was. And even if that means overspending on someone who might be an average starter at best, maybe slightly below average, if they can get competition there and some stability, I think that's something they're willing to do. I'll mention another name that sort of has flown under the radar, but he filled in for San Francisco when Trent Williams was out last year. Jalen Moore. He's 27 years old. He's not going to break the bank, but again, has some starting experience. That's what I see them doing a lot on the offensive line, finding pieces that have started games in this league that there's still, I don't know what you would call upside, or there's still some room to grow with that player, not the 32-year-old stopgap. People were clamoring for them to trade for Joe THUNEY. Joe's 32. Like, I understand it. He's much better than anything you have, but they're just like, we're not ready for that. Essentially, we're not going to be that kind of team. So sort of keep that in mind for tiers. I don't think that Chris Godwin should be the only wide receiver they add. I think Cooper Kupp makes a lot of sense there. Darius Slayton makes a lot of sense there. And both guys are pros. Obviously, Slayton more of an outside receiver, Kupp more of an inside receiver, which could create some duplicity with Chris Godwin if you land him, which is why I'm kind of leaning in the Slayton direction. Slayton's probably going to cost $10 million a year. Explosive player, though. And as I mentioned, tremendous locker room guy. The Giants absolutely love him. He is someone that, again, you can point to the young players on the roster and say, this is how you do it. This is how you stick around in the league. This is how you can be the kind of player that we envision you being. So I look at Darius Slayton. I'm going to dip into the Jets linebacking core. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Damian Sherwood getting closer and closer to free agency without a deal from the Jets. I think the Patriots obviously have more money to offer Damian Sherwood than the Jets would, should he get there. It's clear that Mike Vrabel has a type. I talk about penetrating up front. He's had smaller interior linebackers, David Long being first and foremost among. David Long was an absolute wrecking ball for the Titans when he was healthy. Damian Sherwood makes a lot of sense. If not Damian Sherwood, Robert Spillane from the Vegas Raiders. Same thing, 6'1", 225-ish. Had a really good year for them last year. Not going to break the bank, going to cost less because he's 4 years older than Sherwood. That's a name to keep in mind. That's a name that I would be interested in if I was the Patriots. I think Malcolm Kuntz is another one where you need to bolster your pass rush. Milton Williams would give you that on the interior. If you add Malcolm Kuntz, assuming that he checks out healthy, and remember, he got hurt in August, I believe it was. So he's had essentially half a year between training camp to get that knee right. He was tracking as a player who was going to make a lot of money in free agency based on his 2023 season. Now maybe you can get him for a little bit cheaper because there isn't, he's coming off the injury. There's a question there. But I think what you saw on tape in 2023 would be an excellent fit for the Patriots in 2025, give you a little bit more juice in the pass rush. And when we talk about the Patriots, not only do they have all this money, they don't have any guys that they need to re-sign. They did their ridiculous over-signing of a bunch of guys on the 4-13 roster 2 years ago. This year, the biggest names in free agency for them are Dietrich Wise, who's at the end, Jonathan Jones, who's at the end. Like, if they're back, fine. You're not paying a lot of money for either one of them. Both of them are going to know that they're in part-time roles, but in general, you have this clear pathway to do whatever you want. And I'll give you one more name that I think is reasonable, coming off a rough year for a lot of reasons in San Francisco. Javarius Ward, the corner. And I don't, again, you're going to have to pay the suck tax because you're not a good football team. And I know San Francisco wasn't a good football team last year, but he's become accustomed to playing on teams that can contend. You're not there yet. He had the tragic passing of his young daughter. It was a tough year for him, and I think you can understand why. Is he someone who, on a one-year deal at $10 million, you line him up opposite Christian Gonzalez? You have some other depth there at cornerback, and Alex Austin, who you brought back as an exclusive rights free agent, Isaiah Bolden, who was a late-round pick, who played some late last year, and say, like, we've got our defense back to a place now where we're not top 5. Maybe we're not even top 10, but we sure as hell ain't 30, 31, 32 like we were last year. And if you get the proper growth from Drake May and some of the younger players, and you assume much better coaching this year, then all of a sudden you are a 7 or 8 win football team, and you've got this thing pointed in the right direction. And God knows it's been pointed in the wrong direction for multiple years. So again, there were some big ticket items there, and then there are some more mid-level types. I still think like
Mike, I have a few ones to throw you.
I was going to wrap up. I was going to say maybe my ideal scenario is you hit on a couple of those bigger ticket items just because you have such a pressing need in a couple. Well, you have pressing needs in a lot of spots, but in a couple spots, and then sign 12 to 15 guys in free agency in that middle tier, and just say we've increased the level of competition. We don't have to run out Demontre Jacobs for 13 starts. If Vidarian Lowe's stinking at left tackle, we have a better option. Or if we can't figure out left guard, there's a veteran guy that we signed for $5 million, $7 million that he's playing. And you guys, sorry, we're done with the development crap. You're out, he's in, and we move on.
Yeah, a couple names that I thought about, for the Patriots make sense. I don't think they'll be in the DJ Reed sweepstakes, and they shouldn't be, to be honest with you. I just don't think it fits their timeline. Jordan Lewis probably doesn't fit their timeline either. That said, does take the football away a lot. He could be a 2-year deal. Him opposite Gonzalez. Gonzalez, it's a good group. I don't hate that for them at all. Terrell Bernard, by the way, extended as we were recording, 4 years, $50 million. I do wonder for them, do they look to add a running back or do they look to the draft? If I'm them, I prefer to look to the draft based on you're already paying Ramondre, and this is a great draft class. I mentioned some receivers there. You mentioned the bigger names. I also think you mentioned Darius Slayton. Like, they should be a Slayton team too. They should be a team that's like, if we're going to add a Godwin, we need a guy's going to take the top off, because Polk's certainly not going to do that. Yeah, Pop Douglas can, but he's more of like I just don't know if that's his game.
Well, yeah, there has been buzz since the combine, or right around the combine, and then after the combine, that Mike Vrabel and Javon Baker, their 4th round pick, who had 1 catch and didn't know where to go and was late and did all these things, that they've already made a connection. And there's some, when they say this, and I think it was in the Andrew Callahan, Doug Kyde story in the Boston Herald, quoting sources saying people in the league believe Baker is their most talented receiver. Physically, yes, he is. There's no question. There's just a lot more that comes with it than that. And so, I mean, he wilted in every scenario last year. When they were ready to play him in London, he's late in London and gets scratched. He never understood the playbook. He was pouty, moody. Like, he was very unprofessional, which he's immature, which was one of the reasons why he didn't go first, second round. That's why he went in the 4th round, because of all these things. So they can say this, and Vrabel has had a history of sort of connecting with certain players like this. So maybe, but until he gets on the field and actually does it, I'm not counting on that. And that's why I think you're right. Darius Slayton, he's your ex. Bingo, go.
2 other names. One, actually, I'll just give you one more, and then we can move on to the stuff around the league. Charles Omenihu, 7 sacks in 2023, 5 in 2022. I thought he was going to be due for a big payday, like on this upcoming year, and then obviously misses the year, gets hurt, has a suspension coming up. That said, he is a perfect buy low guy for the Patriots. Of like, hey, we're stacking a winning pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like he was about to really I thought he was going to be a 10 sack guy this year. Like, coming out of last year, I was like, whoa, like Kareem and Karlaftis, like, what? How do they keep doing it? He is one, again, Charles Omenihu, who I have him for the Jets as well, as like, you want to add some edge depth as your 3rd edge rusher in a rotation, but like upside, he is certainly one of those names to watch there.
Yeah, a very intriguing name. You're right. His career arrow was pointed up, and then the injury, the suspension, whatnot. That is an absolutely classic scenario. And of course, again, buy low, but you have so much money that if someone buys low and says $5 million, you can say 7. And that should be enough to convince a player to take the trip to Foxborough, Massachusetts. Let's hear from PrizePicks, because they're awesome. Best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars in award winnings. PrizePicks has made, as you know, you've heard me say this, made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just more or less on at least 2 players, up to 6 for a shot to win 1,000 times you cash. Your boy, by the way, has been on a bit of a heater on PrizePicks. So thank you, folks. App is easy to use to create the lineup. Again, all you do more or less for a few stats, really. I mean, so you can really narrow it down, especially if you're into those sorts of details. You can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine basketball with baseball, hockey, esports, which that's not my bag, but it might be yours. So whatever. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Discount select player projections up to 25%. To provide even more value for your lineups. Second half of the basketball season is here. In fact, we're steamrolling towards the playoffs. Same thing with the NHL. So just download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Time now for bold prediction. Get me one bold prediction, Will, that you think is going to happen here in the next whatever week or so as we get into free agency.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you two bold predictions. I'm going to say Milton Williams signs for $25 million plus. And I'm going to say we are going to get a Justin Fields contract that looks – actually, no, I won't do a Justin Fields one. I'll do a DJ Reed signs with the Giants for 4 years, $80 million is going to be my second bold prediction.
So my bold prediction is going to take us into our next topic, and that's Trey Hendrickson. I think Trey Hendrickson is going to be a Washington Commander.
Ooh.
I think he's going to be a Washington Commander for a late second or early third round pick. I think despite Cincinnati saying they wanted to keep all these guys and try to appease Joe Burrow, the idea for them of paying a soon to be 31-year-old edge rusher, even though he's awesome. I'm probably, aside from his family, I am probably the head of the Trey Hendrickson fan club. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. And the Max Crosby deal sort of sent this thing into another orbit. Yep. And if someone's willing to pay him north of, I don't know, $27-28 million a year, and I'm Cincinnati, thanks. We appreciate all you did for us, and good luck with that. Where do you stand on the Trey Hendrickson news that they're letting him shop for a deal?
Look, the Bengals we've talked about this since week 9.
Yeah.
Should have traded him at the deadline. Should have traded Higgins. They should have traded everybody not named Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow that had any value and totally started this thing over. Done what Buffalo did in a lot of ways of like, let's clean house to some of the contracts. We're going to take a little bit of a hit on talent, but if we can get some young guys in here, get the cap situation right, almost reset on the fly, that's the move to make. Hendrickson makes a lot of sense for a ton of teams. I wonder if any combination of Washington, Philly, other teams that are either losing edge rushers or we are rumored to always be in the market for edge rushers is in play there. Hendrickson to Dallas would make sense. I think Josina Anderson had a report they're not willing to spend that on somebody, but they've created a ton of cap space. So I do wonder, do they change their mind there? I don't know if they want another big contract, but again, that's something like, do we move Micah and get a bunch of picks and do something like that? Or do we have Hendrickson and Micah and say our defense, him, the three of them, and Odigizua, like we're going to suck at linebacker, but our D-line is going to be unbelievable.
Right.
You just want, like, there's a lot of ways to play this here, but Washington makes sense. We talked about Washington and Philly, the two teams, the arms race in the NFC East. They need an edge rusher. Hendrickson's a damn good player. He'll give you 15 sacks a year. And for a second or third round pick, how much better is Myles Garrett than Trey Hendrickson? Is he like a first round pick better and $5 million a year? I don't know. I just like,
yeah, I don't know that there's as massive a gap as you want it to be. I mean, look,
there's a gap. I get it, but
when all said and done, Myles could go down as one of the great edge rushers of all time, and Trey's not gonna be thought of in the same way. However, his recent production has been awesome, and it's been awesome for like 4 or 5 years. So he probably does not get the respect that he deserves. You mentioned Myles Garrett, and quickly, I just wanted to hit this. There was a report, again, that we're taping this on Friday, that Jimmy Haslam, Myles Garrett asked to meet with the owner, Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam said no. Jimmy Haslam is literally taking that franchise, which has never been, a beacon of hope and just doing things the right way. but he has taken this franchise in these last 5 years and literally has driven it into the ground. I wrote about this. We've talked about it. Just do it. Just trade him, man. You get your 2 first-round picks if you can get it and get it done. Like he ain't playing for you. You're gonna make him sit out, and you're gonna waste a massive asset. You need to turn the page. The Deshaun Watson thing didn't work.
3 assets you have left.
Yeah, just freaking do it. Like, just embarrassing. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's I just don't get it. It's terrible optically. Look, dude, no one told you to go pay Deshaun Watson $250 million guaranteed
Right.
and give up 1 million picks. Like, no one told you to do that. So, no, I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling on like what they should do, because in a lot of ways I'd be like, hey, like maybe we just pay Myles Garrett what he wants, and at least we give the fans something, and he's a great player, and he's a Brown for life, and he's the best player in franchise history, not named Jim Brown at the end of the day. And not saying he's yet, but like he, would go down as that. And there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I just don't think he even wants that. I think he's he's done. So then
he's
signaled he's done. Yeah, just
what would you have to pay him to get him to stay at this point? 36, 35?
Max Crosby?
33.
91 did Max get for guaranteed money?
Max got 3 for 106, basically fully guaranteed.
Yeah. So you gotta go north of that.
I don't know. We give him 4 for 140. You give him the Jamar deal.
Lord. I mean,
I'm saying, like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. And then are you taking on, like, what are you going to take the Eagles' 2nd round pick the next 2 years? That's going to be in the 60s.
Right.
That doesn't excite me. So I don't know what the answer is.
Look, I'm just
Washington's
saying,
the answer. That's I keep pushing this, but like,
right,
the answer for the edge rusher team, because they have a pick they're willing to give. I'm sure they'd give up that 1st round pick.
Oh, easy.
They'll be able to pay whatever they want, and it's like, hey, you could tell the fan base, hey, we have 2 1st round picks this year, and next year we're gonna get Cam Ward or Shador and whatever, and we're gonna buy Watson out. Which, again, another one, like, why have you not cut him? Just eat the money, dude. You're gonna eat the money no matter what. He's never playing football again. Especially not for you. So
no, definitely not for you. So yeah, it's
my hottest take, Bill Simmons theory, is that they weren't too upset he retore the Achilles.
Oh, I'm sure they're fine because now they don't have to deal with it. He's not the quarterback, and now it's just like, nah, dude, it's over.
Collect the cash and move on.
Yeah. D.K Metcalf requested trade, which, oh, by the way, interesting little nugget came out late last night on Thursday night that Seattle was disappointed that news came out because that was the same day they decided to send Tyler Lockett packing. Tyler Lockett is revered by everyone in Seattle as just an awesome dude, awesome teammate, awesome player. So they really wanted it to be, in some ways, a celebration because everybody knew this was coming. And like, let's just talk about Tyler and all he meant to the franchise. Instead, the news gets released on the same day that DK Metcalf wants a trade. Early reporting is they're seeking a 1st and a 3rd. I had one exec laugh at that. There's no way in hell that's going to happen. He also reportedly wants north of $30 million, or at least $30 million a year in a contract extension as he enters the last year. Does he even get that? Do you think he gets $30 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's going to get 32 or 33 a year.
He's not that kind of player.
I think he's going to go. I think he'll go to the Chargers for a 2 and a 4. I think he's a great fit with the Chargers. I think he can be your one, quote unquote, but heavy running game. Herbert can take a lot of deep shots to him and I almost said Kelvin Benjamin. Holy crap. Quentin Johnson and then Ladd McConkey operate in the slot. Yeah, nice look. They draft a running back because it's a great running back class. I don't know. You take an RJ Harvey in round 4 and balance him with Gus the Bus and J.K. Dobbins and the whole thing. And like, it's a pretty damn good unit. All of a sudden, I think he fits Green Bay as well, but the rumors are he wants to play somewhere warm. Who knows? There was the report that the Packers had offered 23 and Christian Watson. Feels a bit. I mean, I'm not a huge Watson guy, and I know he's got the injury, but that still feels like a lot. I don't really get what Seattle's doing.
Right.
And
this goes back to the Geno Smith discussion, right?
Why don't you just either pay these guys or move off everybody? Like, but you just hired a new coach. Last year was the time to move. DK's value last year, if you didn't have to pay him, and he was, he's 27 now. He's coming off a better year the year previous. Why wouldn't you have moved Lockett last year at the deadline and said, "Hey, this is what you do. That's the classic like sports. It sucks, but we have to move off those guys." Or, it felt like they held on a year or two too long on a lot of these guys, and they're in just this weird position of like, what are the Seahawks now? I don't know. I'm just confused. The Devin Willis doing that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know. They're weird. They confuse me.
I might be on an island with this one. And look, he's a number one receiver for a bunch of teams, but he's not a number one receiver. Like, he's not Jamar. He's not Justin Jefferson. I don't know who else you want to put in that. Tyreek Hill a couple of years ago was that. Like, I think he has a high floor, but I think he's already hit his ceiling. He's not gotten any better, right? So I wouldn't pay the guy $30 million. And I know someone, and look, again, it's not my money and the cap has gone bananas. So like, if someone does it, if the Patriots were somehow able to convince him to come here, and
I would do a 3-year deal. I wouldn't go long more than that.
Well, that was his extension was 3 years. And here's the other part.
I want for 90 if you could. Yeah. That to me, get to age 30 season, I'd feel okay. Anything more than that, I'm starting to be like, ooh,
here's
the diet, the whole thing. There's a lot that goes into DK that's not just the player.
I think Seattle signaled to you what they thought about DK at the second half of the season when JSN was their number one guy. And I think that's part of why Metcalf wants to go. I mean, wants to go
number one. I don't know.
I don't think so, but I feel like that's what they decided to do. They're going to.
I agree. I don't know if no. And then I'm like going back and forth. Okay, let's say they get a 1 from, or they get a 2 and the 4 from the Chargers or something. I don't know. And they take, what do they take? They take Matt Golden in the first round at 18, or you take Burden, and I don't know. Like, I just don't. They're just in a weird spot where like the quarterback's good, but obviously I don't feel that he's good enough to get them over the hump. But they could do a lot worse, so you don't want to get rid of him. The O-line should be better. It's not. It's very bad. And like they took a bunch of guys high. Yep. The defense, they've invested a ton of picks, but I don't know if it's a great defense. I just think
that's going to take some time to come together, I think. Yeah,
guy, I guess. Yeah,
interesting scenario to see how quickly that plays out too. Because there was a quote from John Schneider, who was on the radio yesterday, where he's like, "Well, worst." His quote was, "Worst case scenario, we have a physically talented receiver playing for us in 2025. So, like, worst case, he's gone. They're gonna make it happen. They'll find the best deal possible, and hopefully." He's going to have a little bit of say in it because he wants the extension. So, hey, if you trade me to New England and I don't want to stay there, like, what are they going to give up? Because I'm not going to sign the contract.
The best part of this, Mike, is that was almost like the Schefter tweet that said the Jets have allowed Alan Lazard to seek a trade, but would be okay with him coming back. No, they wouldn't.
No,
not at all.
No, slightly different level of player as well. Couple moves by the Chicago Bears pre-free agency, trading for Jonah Jackson from the Rams, mostly a left guard, but has played a bunch of different positions on the offensive line. Had just signed a 3-year contract for $51 million in free agency with the Rams last year. Wasn't healthy, played 4 games.
Full salary.
Yes. And they just like, we're moving on. So they made that quickly. And then Joe Thuney, the morning after, they trade for him a 2026 4th-round pick. A lot of people surprised by that because he's been a first-team all-pro for the last 2 years. Although, again, that's sometimes his reputation. Like, still a really good player, don't get me wrong, but like he's starting to go this way, and I think that's what Kansas City signaled with the trade. What did you make of what Chicago did, and what do you think Kansas City is signaling here with that move?
I like the moves in theory, because I think they know they got to build a wall for Caleb, and it's not good enough, and they'll probably take another offensive lineman in the draft. Maybe this opens up a Will Johnson, Ashton Genty type at 10 if they're there. For them, they can add positions of strength and the whole thing. And Ben Johnson knows you got to build up front, right? That's what they had in Detroit, and all those things make sense. $17 million a year for Jackson, who was hurt all year. I guess it's a low-risk move in terms of, like, you can move off him eventually, but what if he's hurt right away? again.
Right.
And then it's like, dude, that's a really expensive that's a really expensive player who's I don't know that he's a $17 million a year guard. The THUNEY one makes sense for this year, for sure. Like I think like plug and play, put him back at left guard, instantly you're way better. You can run the football better. That's great.
Yep.
But like he wants an extension, and is an extension a 2-year deal? Are we talking a 4-year deal? It kind of reminds me, and this is a weird comp because it is a compliment, but Alan Faneca signed with the Jets at age 33, I believe, left guard. They got he signed in 2008. Was still a Pro Bowl player, but it was like it was starting to become time eventually. I believe it was a 4-year deal or 3 or 4-year deal, and they obviously cut him after 2 years. He's a Pro Bowler both years, but he wasn't the same player he was. And the Jets ended up eating a bunch of money in 2010. They move on and whatever. The long story short, they went to Matt Slauson and whatever. The point being, like, if you're going to keep THUNEY at guard, his career is going to be longer. And I think that move makes sense to me. The draft capital, it doesn't matter if you protect Caleb. The Jackson one to me just felt like, dude, you couldn't have gotten the Rams to eat any of the money. I would have sent the pick back to not eat money because I would have been the Bears. I would be like, cool, take our 5th. Just we'll get them for free. Basically traded a 5th for nothing. The Rams can eat the salary and whatever. I just felt like you're going to pay THUNEY and Jackson now. And like, again, I get it, but I also don't get paying both guys. I'd rather just have had THUNEY and brought Tevin Jenkins back or like drafted a right guard.
Yeah, Ben Johnson has the familiarity, obviously, with Jackson from being in Detroit.
Yeah, not a bad player.
There's some comfort there. The THUNEY thing is interesting to me, and I referenced this on social media this week, and then I think I've talked about it here already as well, in that Kansas City's trying to fix their offensive line. And obviously, THUNEY's still a really good player. So you say, why would you move on from him? Well, they franchised Trey Smith, who's significantly younger, not the same player that THUNEY is and hasn't been at any point in his career, but they're projecting that. And they're also saying, we have to fix left tackle. And this is where I think the Ronnie Stanley thing comes into play. Again, should Stanley get to free agency, that they're already starting to carve out some money to be able to make a move like that, or even, again, like a lot of other teams, if they get shut out of the Stanley, to pivot to someone like Cam Robinson or Dan Moore or Jalen Moore, or whoever it might be, the next one, to at least give them a better, well, I don't know if those guys are better options, but maybe what they feel is a better option beyond Stanley, because they can't go into this thing the same way. And then you could take Kingsley Suamataia, who they were hoping to be their left tackle. He's athletic enough to play inside and play guard, so maybe he kicks inside to guard, and then you have your internal answer at left guard, and you sign, as I said, the pie in the sky thing would be to go get Ronnie Stanley, and they fix the offensive line just like they did after they lost the COVID Super Bowl when they traded for Orlando Brown and they signed Joe Thuney in free agency.
They're going to win a ton of games next year. Good chance I pick them to win the AFC. Again, had this conversation last year and then working out. I don't know, I don't love their roster at all. I like 6 guys, and 2 of them are
Nick Bolton's free agent.
Nick Bolton's a free agent, and Chris Jones is 32 years old.
Justin Reed's a free agent.
Justin Reed's a free agent.
Yeah.
Joe Thuney, who's an All-Pro. Trey Smith, they're gonna, of course, paying Trey Smith over Thuney makes sense. 25 years old, but versus 32. And I'm not trying to be overly critical of the Chiefs, but at some point here, kind of got to hit on some offensive guys in the draft. Feel like they had the really great class of Smith, Thuney in free agency, Creed, and it was like, whoa, interior's amazing. We'll figure out tackles. Who gives a crap? They paid a bunch of money to Jawan Taylor and whatever, and they were fine. They're league average players, and Mahomes can make up for it. I don't know. I don't love their running back room. Don't love their receiver room. I don't love their tight end room anymore. Right. It's, and again, Noah Gray and Kelsey's a good pairing when they're both right, but Kelsey, you're getting, the Gronk, car in the garage theory, and Noah Gray's a fun player. Defensively, they had the one really big draft, and that was amazing. But other than that, it's they gotta, I don't know. They kind of need a good offseason here, because as much as he's great, Mahomes is amazing. Reed's one of the best 4 or 5 coaches ever, probably at this point. They got their doors blown off in the Super Bowl, and like everyone's going to be like, okay, this is how you beat Kansas City. And I know we do this with every sport and every team that gets beat. It's like, this is how you beat them. You still got to be able to do it. But it's been like a bit of a leaky faucet. It felt like for 24 months, and it finally kind of just burst, and they got smoked. It can go one of two ways. We see this with dynasties and great teams every time. Are they going to be the Warriors who lost, and then they come back with KD, or are they like, oh boy, this is gonna, they're gonna need to rebound a little bit, and they'll be a 10-win team, late 90s Cowboys, where it started to be like the guys got older a little bit and kind of started to fade earlier than it felt like it should have, broke up a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like doomsday it. I'm just
I think that they have been incredibly aggressive and have tried to, like, look, Rashee Rice, that was an unfortunate injury. They obviously took a risk on the personality, and that still could be
definitely lucky with that one. Let's be
right.
honest.
Yeah, Worthy obviously developed as the year went on. I just wonder if there's more coming, like another sort of seismic move on their own roster. And I like, look, I'm just spitballing as we have this conversation, like, and I don't, again, total spitball. Don't even know what the dead money would be. What would they consider at this point? Chris Jones and moving off him in a trade? I'm just trying to think of ways in which they can
retool and
reshuffle. And look, you're not replacing Chris Jones, the player that Chris Jones is, at least in the short term.
I got to pay McDuffie, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So they had to walk away from L'Jarius Sneed. They missed L'Jarius Sneed this year. Now he was hurt all year, so who knows if he would have been hurt.
Don't get me wrong, he sucked in Tennessee, but it's not some guys. Mike, something to focus on free agency and trades in the offseason is some guys do fit a specific organization,
100%,
a specific team really well. Bryce Huff fit the Jets. He was a great player for the Jets. He wasn't good in Philly because he didn't fit what they were trying to do. It's okay, and it doesn't mean he's a bad player or a good player.
Right.
L'Jarius Sneed fit.
I'd still take a run at Bryce Huff.
Right. That's to be a team. The Patriots, that's a perfect. We have the money to do it. Take a 4th round pick. You guys eat the dead cap, and like, we hope we hit. And if we do, it's like, wow, right, we got one over on, the Eagles and the Jets in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's just an interesting thing as we're just sort of having a conversation. Like, how do they build up their roster again, aside from the draft? Obviously, everybody's got it. You got to, if you do well in the draft, you set yourself up for success. But there's certain pieces on their roster that I wonder.
The stock market, Mike, you can buy a better house.
Yes, absolutely. Before we get out of here, Zach BAUN gets a 3-year, $51 million deal to stay with the Eagles. It's funny because you look at it and say, dang, he did really well. But then you start hearing from other people and you're like, if he got into the open market, he actually might have done even better than that. So good for him, because he realizes this is an awesome situation for him. Yeah. He thrived there. He's playing behind Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. Like, it's a good place to be, even though that's not what he thought he was going to be, an off-the-ball linebacker playing in the middle. Good for him. But you mentioned Milton Williams probably being $25 million a year. Josh Sweat also headed to free agency. Do you think that automatically, because I was thinking maybe they could manage to get 2 of the 3 guys taken care of? Does that pretty much tell you that Milton Williams and Josh Sweat are gone?
Depends on Myles Garrett, because everyone keeps linking them with the Eagles. Yes. So if he's there, then that's a totally
I believe we started that trend right here on the All 32 pod. Not that anyone will give us credit, but I think we started there. Yeah.
I guess a lukewarmish take. I don't love the signing. He's 28 years old. That's fine. He's gonna be 29 next season. And again, it's okay. But like, look through Zach Baun's career, right? Paying a guy 4th highest AAV in the league, and again, Howie's amazing at this, and like, they could take a shot on this. And again, he's playing behind a great defensive line. Everything should work out fine. But I will say, like, 1-year wonder at 28, going to be 29 next season. Off-ball linebacker making 17 plus a year. There's strong guarantees in the contract. I don't know. just again, just something to like. There was not a track record to say this is repeatable. I hope he repeats it. He's an awesome, such a fun player. He was unbelievable in the playoff run. It's the Eagles. The contract will work out. Probably.
Yeah.
I just think everyone celebrated it and was like, it's an amazing deal how he does it again. And it's like, I guess, but like, I'd rather celebrate Howie when he signs the Zach BAUN types for 1 year, $3.5 million, and then capitalizes and like gets the comp pick back. And then that's how they keep the train rolling and he drafts Zach BAUN's replacement. Like, I don't know. Could they have like gone out and signed like another guy at $4 or $5 million? They never paid linebackers. It just felt like an interesting move for the Eagles, who never do it, to sign an off-ball linebacker. It's a 1 year wonder going into his age 29 season, $17 million a year. Am I too harsh on this move?
No. So here's what I think. I think part of the reason people applauded the move is because Howie's been on a heater, right? So it's like, oh, well, anything Howie does, it turns to gold. I also think that the part of it too was people said you couldn't pay a running back, and he went and paid a running back last year and it won a Super Bowl, and the Barkley had an incredible year. And now people don't really value, an interior linebacker, an off the ball linebacker. And Howie said, no, this guy fits for us. And he was awesome for us. He was a defensive player of the year finalist. And so I think it's almost like Howie doesn't care what other people think or how they view how you should do things. He does things his own way. And so some of this, I think, is just really, truly like an appreciation for Howie for thinking. I think about my team. I don't care about your team. I think about my team and what I need and what we need as a team to be successful. And this worked for us, so we're going to stay involved with it. Yeah, there is some risk to it. Certainly, he never showed he was this kind of player before. Obviously, never played on the inside. They also have the Nakobe Dean injury, which is probably going to cost them all of next year. I mean, it happened in the postseason, so.
Yeah, I get why they did it. I'm just saying that like it was out of character for them to like pay an off-ball linebacker top of market at that age. Usually, you would have, if he was 24, having sucked for 3 years, then it's like, like Jamie Sherwood's a great example, right? Torn Achilles, rotational, boom, team MVP. I still think there's risk in signing a guy that's one proven year as a starter.
Huh.
He's going into his age 25 season and like should be about to hit his prime for the next 2 to 3 years. So you pay him $12 million a year and you feel fine. Zach BAUN will probably be good. And don't give me like the great part of having an owner that's willing to spend money is if the contract does suck, they'll eat it.
Yep.
Right. That's the key here. And all of what we say, the Saquon extension too, like that was a legit extension. Like they gave him upfront cash and like it's 2 years added on. Apparently he'll never see that.
Seems
but
unlikely that he'll see it. Yeah.
So it's worth it for the Eagles. Again, I'm not trying to say that's not a good move. I was a little surprised they just hammered that thing out because I thought maybe Howie'd say, go test the market. And like, you want to go play in Jacksonville for 22 a year? Like maybe you do, but have fun. Like sometimes you just a good organization. Sometimes go test. They did with Stafford, right? The Rams just did with Stafford.
Sure.
So you want 50 a year, right? You want to go play for the Giants? No, not really. Do you come back here? We don't know the details yet, but I guarantee that contract is going to go. It could
also be what Cincinnati's doing with Trey Hendrickson. We mentioned him, like, and probably less so, but like, okay, you think you're worth $28 to $30 million at your age. We don't think you're that. So, like, go ahead, have your agent talk.
Bengals should do it with Jamar and see how many teams actually do pay him.
Oh my God!
What do you think he could get on the open market? New England's Jamar Chase is a free agent tomorrow.
Like they'd pay him like $60 million in the first year. Like it'd probably be a 4 years, $160 million. Some sort of where it's like $40 million-ish a year. But the first year guarantee would be below people $65 million. Here's the check. Boom, take it. And again, he comes from a position like I know they have the tag and they can do all sorts of things with him. He could also take screw you.
He's pretty ugly.
He absolutely could. I mean, in a way he did last summer, and it may cost them their opening game against the Patriots, which sent false hope here in New England, and also was again, Cincinnati falling short in the playoffs, it's a game they shouldn't have lost. So yeah, be very interesting to see how that plays out. I'm excited. I am already dreading the lack of sleep. I am already feeling as though from the team that I cover in my backyard that it might be somewhat underwhelming. But who knows? We've been surprised before. 2021 was an offseason I did not expect to see for the Patriots when they spent all that money. Most of it not spent well. However, that's what happened. So we will be back next week. We're trying to figure out exactly when we're going to jump on and hit various things, because Monday can be fast and furious in a lot of ways, where you hear the player X and team Y have agreed to the parameters of a deal, which, can't be made official until whatever it is, Wednesday or Thursday. But anyway, he is Will Parkinson. I'm Mike Giardi. We appreciate you tuning in as always to All 32. Remember to rate, review, like, subscribe, tell your friends, have them tell their friends. We appreciate you, and we will see you early next week.